prosecution outlined how accounting practices
fuck?
of Conley Sessions did not.
What kind of likeness is that?
If they were great artists, they'll be in a museum.
Evidence today may signal at least one.
I'm fucking fodder for cartoonists now.
Yes, time for another episode of Gutter Boys. Gutter Boys is a small press comics podcast about the ins, the outs, the highs, and the lows of making comics. I am your host, JB. Cam is still on his leave. He should be back for the next episode, which will be our annual holiday award show where we discuss the winners and losers of 2024. Very exciting stuff. For this episode, I am joined with Brooklyn's own Gianna Meola, a very talented cartoonist, illustrator, educator, and all-around cool person. We talk about her work, what she's up to over in Brooklyn, her experiences as an educator, teaching a variety of different ages and groups, about the wonders of printmaking as well as sequential art. There's not a whole lot of comics news right now. It's probably because a lot of it is likely overshadowed by the insanity that has been the last 30 days. We want to shout out our boy, Free Our Man, who is representing Italian excellence. As many of you all know, it is now, Brat Summer is over. We have now fully entered Italian winter. So act accordingly. You know what I mean? Not a lot else to talk about here. I don't want to get too political, Personal news, none of your business. Pod news, things are going well, I guess. This episode is obviously a few days late, but at least it's on the week it's supposed to air. Or at least I think it is. I could be wrong, actually. This might be very well another late episode by another week. But who cares? Who's even paying attention to this? It does not matter. But enough about me. How are you doing? What are you up to? You feeling all right? Is the soul-crushing realities of the growing inequality in this country finally getting to you? Yeah, man. It sucks. Shit sucks. Look, I don't want to be a doomer or anything, but it's not looking good. It's not looking good, and I don't think it's going to get any better. But hey, at least we have comics, right? Am I right, folks? Comics. It's great. We did recently get a care package from our friends in San Francisco, the good folks at Silver Sprocket Press, one of our many sponsors. If you want to be a sponsor of the show, that would be much appreciated. Go on over to gutterboys.top or patreon.com/gutterboys. And over there, you can opt in to be a sponsor of the show for a nominal fee. I would say it is quite a deal. I think it's $15. I'm pretty sure it is. So if you have anything that you want us to promote for you, let us know and join the many listeners who have been kind enough to become part of the Gutter Nation. So yeah, let's get into the books real quick. First, we have from Hyena Hell, Demons, Rise and Grind. Quote on the book, every character is a hilarious extension of some familiar misery. And I think that is a great summary of this book. My brain is fried, so I can't even remember if we've had Hyena Hell on the show. I feel like we have, and if we haven't, that's a problem, and we will have it addressed. So listeners, if you don't think we have, or you're like a hardcore listener who pays attention to this stuff, let us know in the comments. Let us know if we've missed out on Hyena Hell, because I genuinely can't even remember anything anymore. Pretty much what we've come to expect from Silver Sprocket in terms of presentation. Very tasteful, very nice matte cover with a nice single gloss hit for the title. Worth checking out. Let's see, what else we have? Belly Full of Heart by Madeline Mouse. Summary of this one, a comic book ode to ooey gooey homosexual lovers of the past, present, and future. So if you're a big fan of gay stuff, I know we got quite a few listeners who are. This one's for you. This one is specifically for you. Okay. Shout out to all the gays. We appreciate your support and the straights too. I guess you guys are okay too. Next up, we have The Collected Crime Hot by Alec Robbins. This one is a thick boy, and I was flipping through this one earlier. Some pretty horny shit in here. Not gonna lie. It is. It's mostly, mostly horny stuff going on. So if you like your comics to give you a rise, so to speak, you see what I did there? I'm referring to an erection where the blood rushes into the penis, causing it to grow in size and stiffen. Vera Drew states, Vera Drew, of course, creator, director, writer of The People's Joker. That's a movie that I believe a lot of folks in the small press world are familiar with, have been talking about. I know we have some friends of the shows who were actually involved in the making of that movie. Anyway, Vera says, while the mainstream progressively replaces genuine taste with corporate algorithms, starving artists with untalented computers, and transgressive sexual expression with shamey, cishet, sexless fear smut, the book you are holding is an immaculate holy salve. Thank you, Vera. Very, very, very good. I think that blurb pretty much covers it. Like I said, this one, it almost feels like a manga in terms of its size and overall thickness. And again, this is pretty explicit, so 18 and up only. Sorry, kids, this one's not for you. You're going to have to sit this one out. And, but I don't know. I'm not your parent. So, what you do is none of my business. And then lastly, no, wait, never mind. Just kidding. That's it. So those are the 3 newest books that are currently on Silver Sprocket as part of their ever-growing catalog of fantastic publications. If you want to check out more Silver Sprocket comics, books, and zines, go check them out at silversprocket.com or go to their Instagram account at silversprocket. Again, we want to thank Avi and the entire Silver Sprocket crew for their continued support. We love what y'all do. Okay. Well, enough of that. We're going to go ahead and catch a break. When we return, we will be joined with Gianna Meola. So stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
Are you ready for a wild ride? Get ready to meet the Santos sisters. 2 ordinary girls with an extraordinary secret. One day, while combing the beach in their hometown of Las Brisas, the Santos sisters discovered a pair of beautiful medallions. What happens next changes their lives forever. The medallions are imbued with the powers of a goddess, Madame Sosostris, and can transform them at will into flying, gun-wielding, mask-wearing murder heroes with hearts, if not gold, then at least candy. That's right, it's a mix of Archie Comics meets Love and Rockets with a healthy dose of kick-ass action. Join Ambar and Alana as they fight crime, date dumb guys, and, try to stay sane in a world of assassins, zombies, crazy ex-girlfriends, and more. The Santos Sisters Volume 1 hardcover from Fantagraphics is coming to a comic shop or bookstore near you on March 11th of 2025. Don't miss out on this Technicolor tapestry of irreverent comic book fun. Santos Sisters, because life's a beach until it's not.
Indie Northern Kentucky, or Inc., is the Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati area's only zine, alternative comic, and small press bookstore, featuring over 400 different zines, alternative comics, and small press titles. A creative space with supplies to ideate and create your own zines and comics, and an event space for your zines, comics, or book release or reading. For more information about how to sell your zines and comics at Inc., stop by indieNKY.com. That's INDIESKY.com. Visit our new home in Dayton, Kentucky, and read what the cool kids are reading.
Underground Kingdom Comics Presents Romance is the third issue of a new anthology showcasing the UK's most exciting small press cartoonists. This 28-page A5 comic features cover art by Vincent Bell Robertson and comics by Lily Blakely, Adam Falp, and Anna Redman, plus pinups from Kai Reynolds and Matt Greaves. Daredevils and Warriors wrote, "If you want to leave your comfort zone and are looking for thoughtful and original comics that have an edge without being edgy, then you should check out these UKC books." You can buy Underground Kingdom Comics Presents Romance now, along with the previous two issues, Horror and Crime, and Original Art, by backing our Kickstarter, which is live until Friday, March 15th. Don't be a cunt, buy a comic, innit? Hell yeah. Meow. Meow. Sid the Cat magazine is out now. If you've ever been to an amazing rock and roll show and thought, I wish I could experience this moment again, but in comic form, then Sid the Cat magazine is for you. Fiercely independent show promoters Sid the Cat have joined forces with comics journalist Andrew Greenstone to bring you an ongoing publication that documents the SoCal indie rock scene. This stunning 52-page full-color magazine features comics, articles, photos, and illustrations from a rotating cast of local illustrators and writers. It's a celebration of Sid's artists and venues and supports those keeping the bleeding edge of the indie music scene alive. Our first issue covers musical artists Big Thief, Illuminati Hotties, Mike Kroll, Fucked Up, Finn Lilly, Katie Kirby, Kate LeBon, Cursive, Christian Lee Hudson, No Win, and so many more. If you are a fan of comics, indie music, zines, rock reports, or community by the way of culture, order a copy now at sidthecat.com/sid-zine. Again, that's sidthecat.com/sid-zine.
Athenium Comic Art is an original art website for some of the best cartoonists in the business. They currently represent Remy Boydell, Marie Capelle France, Nicole Gu, Jonathan Hill, Emma Hunsinger, Casey Nowak, Micah Song, and Tilly Walden. Athenium Comic Art gives fans the opportunity to own an original piece of art from their favorite comics and support the artists that they love. In their short time in business, they've already shipped many iconic pages out to hardcore fans across the globe. Don't miss out on your chance to own a one-of-a-kind piece of history. Check out their website, atheniumcomicart.com, and type in Gutter Gang at checkout to receive free shipping on your first order. Again, the website is atheniumcomicart.com, and the code is Gutter Gang.
Morning, Gary. Morning, Marianne. Need a menu? Nah, I'll just have the usual. You sure do love your eggs and coffee, Gary. Best way to start your morning, Marianne. Well, that and an issue of Town and County. What's that? Town and County is a new comic series written and drawn by cartoonist Alex Nall. He's that guy that wrote them books about teaching and that Mr. Rogers feller. Oh, he was such a nice man. The first issue is 36 pages of black and white comic stories with beautiful color covers and features 6 stories about folks in our little township here in Illinois, like Susie Barber, the house cleaner that uncovers her client's dirty laundry, if you know what I mean, and Stanley Pepper, that big feller that just lost his job and took to drinking every night at Bugs's Tavern. Well, ain't that something? Town and County is published by Ivy Terrace Press, headquartered in Chicago. Chicago? Who would want to live there? So dirty. Each issue comes with a copy of the Hometown Hero, our little town's newsletter, and it's only $8. $8? Where can I get it, Gary? You can order a copy of Town and County on the internet at storeenvy/Alex Nall Comics. Oh, there's your breakfast, Gary. Thanks, Marianne. Nothing like a cup of coffee and a good comic book.
Rust Belt Review is a quarterly comics lit magazine featuring serialized and short-form comics from some of the most exciting cartoonists in the small press scene today. Volume 1 features work from Gutter alums M.S. Harkness, Audra Stang, and Caleb Orecchio, along with work by Andrew Greenstone, Sean Knickerbocker, and Juan Jose Fernandez. You can order your copy of Rust Belt Review today by going to rustbeltreview.org. Enter in promo code GUTTER to receive $2 off your order. Again, that website is rustbeltreview.org, promo code GUTTER.
The Last Aviatrix is a post-nuclear adventure comic by independent, Los Angeles-based cartoonist Buster Cagle. The story follows Summer, our last aviatrix, who pilots the sole-surviving airplane, a nuclear-powered B-29, as she travels the ruined world finding ways to survive and help humanity while dealing with the imminent threat of the Atom-born, a rare breed of atomic wizards that want to see her out of the sky. Her mission becomes complicated when she accidentally picks up Henry, an Atom-born child who wields incredible power, and Clementine, a berserker on a quest for vengeance. Can our aviatrix survive this ruined and irradiated wasteland? Every issue can be read for free on bustercagle.com/comics. Paper copies can be ordered as well, but you can still read it for free. If you like wizards or warplanes, go check it out.
Now, back to our program.
All right, and we're back from the break. I am joined with Brooklyn-based cartoonist, illustrator, and educator, Gianna Meola. Gianna, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for, having me on.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for agreeing to come on. I know I've been familiar with your work now for like a couple of years now at this point. Kind of semi-recently, right? You started teaching?
Yeah, in the last 2 years, I worked at a print shop, or I still work at a print shop. So I've been teaching classes there for a while, but now I've made it to higher education. So
very cool.
I teach I teach at SVA now in the summers.
Okay, so just in the summers?
Yeah. It's
nice.
I'm teaching for the MFA visual narrative program, so they're only in person in the summer. So it's cool.
Okay.
It's a hang. Yeah.
No, yeah. That seems like it wouldn't be too demanding schedule wise then.
No, thankfully.
Yeah. So how did you find yourself becoming an educator? Is this something that you ever saw yourself getting involved in, or did you kind of just stumble upon it, or what happened?
Well, I actually started teaching when I was in my early 20s, or and I was teaching ESL classes to people.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And then I went to college and then came out and like so many other, I love teaching, and I really, it's been a really lovely experience, and also extremely inspiring to work with so many people who are learning, and it makes you a better learner yourself for sure. But like so many other artists and stuff, you can't go wrong with a consistent paycheck,
Oh,
So
absolutely.
It's been certainly nice. Yeah.
Does that include benefits, or what's going on there?
That's a great question. I think I've had certain union teaching gigs that do have benefits. So I think it really depends on, where you're working. I did some nonprofit teaching that had surprisingly solid benefits for a minute.
Oh,
there.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long have you been in Brooklyn now?
Probably 10 years or so.
Oh,
at
shit.
least.
Okay.
I'm originally from upstate New York. Sorry to.
Oh, okay. There you go. That was my next question.
Yeah, it's a short train ride.
Where in upstate?
I'm from pretty close to Hudson. So if so Albany, I guess is just a shitty little town on the river.
Sure, yeah. I feel like Illinois and New York have a lot in common in that you have one major city everyone knows, and then everything else.
Yeah.
And, it's just kind of vague question mark ruralness, but then the one thing that the state is really known for in terms of a urban focal point.
Yeah.
My dad's actually, he's not originally from Buffalo, but he moved to Buffalo at a young age and spent the majority of his life here in Buffalo.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Buffalo's cool. It's a good comic book city for sure. Or, small, but
Really?
just like, yeah, I've done some signings at like Gutter Pop up that way.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good vibe there. Like it's small but like passionate, I really like the Buffalo comic scene. Like it's really nice.
Yeah, I always forget the Gutter Pop is out there. Shit.
Yeah, they're lovely. They're like great people.
Yeah, no, I've heard nothing but positive things. I think you had like a reading event there that you posted about.
Yeah, I did.
With some other people. I think MS might have been there.
Yeah, it was, I think in support of like MS, their tour, their like book tour. And
okay,
then, yeah. And I think Phil McAndrew was there, and it was like a year ago, so I think I'm spacing on at least one other person. But they do some great like reading up that way. My friend Atmaja has also done it and came back with like kind of similarly like great vibes too. So yeah, it's a good hang.
Do you consider yourself? I mean, obviously you're teaching sequential art, but prior to that, did you consider yourself more as an illustrator or more as a cartoonist, or do you think those distinctions don't really matter?
I mean, at least for me, I've always been kind of sequential. I've always been really inspired by comics, and like I was always like a really avid comic reader as a kid. As like I did go to school for illustration. They're very, they're hand in hand for sure.
Yeah.
But I guess I've always considered myself like I've just, it's all in the service of like ink to paper. I'm not super, I think it's like, I try not to be too fussy about like how to, like how much story is in there. But I think, all illustrations tell a story, all comics tell a story. I think it's not a huge dividing line for me anyway. And I like, even my illustrations, I always try to like have some kind of like, like way of controlling where the eye sees the story going, like just trying to, it's all about like understanding how the eye perceives it and how you like move through the frame. And it's the same thing with comics.
Right. No, I agree. Obviously there are single panel comics, which I guess you could consider as illustration, but they are still like fundamentally they're comics. Shit. I mean, I always think of like the GOAT tier comic, Far Side.
Oh yeah,
it's just like a single panel comic. Like it's everything is there.
Yeah. So
what got you into comics in the first place? Like how did you find yourself being interested in following this path?
I was always like a really big comic kid. I spent a lot of time like reading comics when I was like a kid. But and I also kind of grew up in sort of the golden era of like scanlations being like free and available, so I could always like read like manga kind of infinitely on my computer as a kid. So but yeah, I guess I've just always been like a big comic reader.
So early on, who were some of the cartoonists that you were actively following or reading and enjoyed?
I've always been a huge like Jillian Tamaki fan, especially like post college, and as like a kid I was like really into like the Sunday funnies, like I always thought they were like just like like I was like the one person laughing with them. But like and then definitely was like like a huge anime nerd as a kid. I was like a big like Rumikyo Takahashi fan, like as from like middle school until college, honestly. Like always kept up with like Inuyasha and all that. Yeah, like it was definitely like a lot of like manga influence for me as like a kid. And I was like a very like avid, every like school break I ever had, I would just be like, all right, I'm tackling like 250 chapters of something, and it's been a long time of doing that still.
And did you notice any shift in your tastes in terms of the types of comics that you were interested in as you grew up and developed your own craft?
Yeah, oh, for sure. When I was like a kid, I was just like reading what I could get my hands on. It wasn't really like, growing up in like 2000, like 8 or whatever, like you were very reliant on like the Borders bookstore, and I kind of grew up pretty rural, so I didn't really have like, I was just like whatever was there, I was like, and like whatever I could get my like mom to buy me was like what I was reading for the most part. And, you know, as I've gotten older and I can like, yeah, I've been certainly reading a lot more like American comics starting in college. And I like, am really like, yeah, like really, really grateful to have access to them now. But just like where I lived, there was basically no comic book store and like very little like comic presence. So basically like I would like see something on TV, which was like mostly like anime, and then I would go to the store and that would also be like available there. So as I got older and like had more like access to infrastructure, I've definitely gotten a lot more into like American comics, and then also like a lot more like abstracted stuff, and yeah, a lot like less like linear storytelling, which I'm very like fond of now.
I'm glad you brought that up because, like, you know, one of the things that I really enjoy about your work is the comics that at least the stuff that I've seen from you. And granted, it's not a ton. I know there's stuff out there. I'm incompetent, so I'm not I'm not as tapped in. I'm not as tapped in as like say Cam, the co-host here, who's not here actually, but you know he's more voracious in terms of the amount and types of comics that he consumes. But the one thing I really enjoy about your work is that you don't really lean heavily on like a straightforward narrative, and it's more about tying images together in sort of a, I don't want to say a vibe, but I guess I am going to say a vibe. You know, like there are certain like thematic things that you tie into all of your images. How did you go about developing that, and how has that translated into the way you approach teaching comics to an MFA class?
Sure. Well, I mean, I would say firstly that like I think vibes totally acceptable way of saying that. You know, like vibes rule everything around me, you know. And for me a lot of my art is like really also in tangent with like whatever music I'm into at the time, or like whatever yeah, so it's like very like also like related heavily with like music, and I try to kind of bring like a beat to it rather than necessarily, you know, it's more poetry than fiction, I guess, is sort of how I personally look at it. But yeah, and I think that like with teaching, I don't just teach like an MFA. I also teach like animation, and I teach a couple things like, you know, so when I'm teaching sequential stuff, it's like, yeah, you can have like a beginning, a middle, and an, you know, everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end, but you can like decide how much detail you want in there, you know, like you can, you know, like there's style and substance, and I don't think they're like mutually exclusive. Like you can kind of do whatever you know, like in service of the point of the story, you know. And I also think like I also pretty much always think with like comics or any other type of like writing or storytelling, it's like you just have to trust your audience to like understand what you're getting at. Like you can't always like, you don't need to over explain it. I think just having like, yeah, just having like the mood be right and have people like pick up on like the tone and the like emotional heaviness of the story is gonna like take you a lot farther than just simply explaining it and then go, you know. So I think it's like you should be, you know, or we should all be like not so afraid to just be like a little weird with it and just a little, you know, just trust people to like pick up what you're putting down in terms of like tone. And I don't know, yeah. Yeah, I also, like, as someone who particularly enjoys the drawing aspect of comic, you know, like, I'm sure everyone, you know, like, as someone who both writes and draws, like, I'm just, like, so gung-ho on the drawing part. If there's something I just, like, really, really want to draw, it's getting in that comic, like, for sure, you know?
Yeah,
whether
it,
like, fits or not. And, like, that's kind of how I, you know, it's, yeah, I operate it kind of just, like, I don't know, like, it's for me, you know, and then happy to share, like, but it's all about just like how much fun I can have with it.
For sure, yeah. I've always felt that there's like sort of this vague line between clarity and being pedantic in terms of any visual art, right? Like being able to clearly express something to the viewer and also kind of like giving them enough credit to understand what it is that you're saying versus having to belabor a point because you maybe don't think the overarching point you're trying to express isn't clear enough. So how do you walk that line?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I definitely err more on the side of like, you know, always trusting people and possibly too much. I would say I often will put no words at all in a comic, and it sort of forces the viewer to like slow down and like actually, like process the pieces. And I think that'll do like a lot to like just slow the eye down and slow like the processing down so that you can like put more visual information in there, which is like particularly helpful to like a lot of the stories I tell.
Yeah.
I also think, just like straight up, just like, like you can only fit so much, in a word bubble. And like, I think
Right.
that'll also like be a lot of the constraints are internal, but they're also kind of, they're external. They're on the page.
Yeah, I think that is like one of the shortcomings of quote unquote mainstream comics is the over reliance of over explaining things and just having page after page of dialogue. So all you're looking at, like visually, it's very boring, right? Like you're just looking at talking heads. And as a viewer, or rather as an artist, you kind of have to concede that the reader is going to be burning through what took you basically like weeks, maybe months of work within a matter of a few minutes. So I do appreciate the idea of like slowing things down for the reader by maybe reducing the number of talking heads, the amount of dialogue, and having to pace it out so that they are really having to explore every nook and cranny of your panels. Is this an approach that you've always had, or do you feel like this is something that has developed over time as both an artist and as an enjoyer of comics?
Yeah, I mean, I actually will say part of why I sort of started doing this was because I just absolutely loathed text and putting text. Like, I just wasn't good at it. And it's like since a skill I've like picked up, and I when I was in college I like took a class on it. But for me, I just like always kept feeling like the text, like just I wasn't good at it. So a lot of it was like I was working around my own limitations, and it ended up being like beneficial to me. But I definitely, so that's like kind of like why I sort of started doing that. But that it's also just like I think I think I've always sort of felt like that. As an artist, I started out doing like almost exclusively illustration work, and then later on moved to comics as well. So I just like, I think I just naturally sort of like to take it as image first, text later. So for things like expressions, I just think it's like, just makes the most sense to like have just like a nice beat panel where you can like see someone frowning or, something like that to really, take it home.
Now, one of the things that I maybe am interpreting from your work, and I could be off base, but one of the things I notice is in terms of like setting and mood, a lot of your work seems to hinge on elements of like nature encroaching like man-made spaces. And do you think that that is something that you have maybe from your upbringing, the environment that you grew up in? And has that changed at all now that you've been in like a major urban setting for the last decade? Or do you feel like that's like it like, do you think like you are almost like a desire to reach out to that part of you now that you are in a very urban setting?
Sure. I grew up somewhere super, super rural, like it was like my parents.
Sorry. Yearning is what I was thinking.
Sure. Yeah. We are and always yearning for a tree or something, but yeah. I to a certain extent, I grew up somewhere super, like really, really rural. And there are these like nature trails and things behind my house. So I could like go, and there's like this creek you could like swim in. It's very idyllic,
Man,
but I was actually like a super indoor kid. Like I became really outdoorsy as I moved to Brooklyn. Like, and I was just like, oh, I really like, I fucked this one up, like I should have really like enjoyed that like swimming hole more as a kid. And as like an adult, I'm like a big hiker, and like Brooklyn's cool because like stuff's open after 9 p.m. But I'm pretty lucky that like we have public transit, like that's really good, and I can just like get to a hike in an hour from like where I live. I also live in Brooklyn near this like the Gowanus Canal, which is this like stinky canal. Basically, it's like super. I mean, you've heard lore of it, but it's like horrible. And they're like, but I used to dog walk right in that area, like after college. And so it's just outside all the time. And I was just like, they have like crabs in it. It's cleaned up now, actually, like in the last like 2 or 3 years. But before it was just like full of like garbage and then just like weird crabs and stuff. And I would just spend all my time like watching like honestly just like stinky polluted nature and like how it like they all sort of work together and how it's like no matter what, there's still always going to be like moss that grows, And I kind of find that like weirdly a little, inspirational and like kind of, I don't know. Yeah, I think there's nature everywhere, whether no matter where you're living, it always kind of like figures its way out. And I think that kind of inspires my art too. It's just like finding the like green spot in the city. It's something I spend a lot of time as like an adult doing as well. Like I know the good cemeteries and stuff to hang. You can like, there's definitely something. But I think you're like pretty much spot on though with the read that it's like, it's like wanting to like be in nature, but there's like that like permanent juggle everyone has where, you gotta, there's, if there's a lot of trees, nothing's really hiring, out that way for the most part.
Right. It's also like a case of like like you don't really appreciate something or maybe don't expect to miss something until it is not as readily available to you on a regular basis, until it is like not there anymore.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and there's also just like a deep impermanence too. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
What borough are you currently residing in?
I'm in Brooklyn, so I'm in South Brooklyn.
South Brooklyn. Okay. Have you been in the same place for the majority of the time, or have you moved around throughout Brooklyn?
I'm very neighborhoody. Like, I've lived since like 2016. I've lived within like 20 blocks of like this, one spot pretty much. Like it's tough. You like end up moving a lot in like Brooklyn, rent gets like changed and all that. But yeah, I'm pretty like in my neighborhood at this point. I'm very like, it's nice. I like know all my neighbors and I can go. There's like 3 bars within walking distance of my apartment where I know for sure I'll like run into someone I'm like good friends with and have been good friends with for like years now. So it's kind of, it's like, yeah, I'm very in my South Brooklyn era at this time, but yeah, I dig this area. It's definitely not like, like I don't know how much you know about like Brooklyn or like if you spend a lot of time here, but it's definitely like a lot more neighborhoody than spots like, like Bushwick or like it's less cool, but there's, I don't know, like if anything happened, I could like crash on my friend's couch like immediately or like,
Yeah, I mean, I haven't spent a ton of time in New York City. I think I've only visited once. Like, this was like in 2012. And at that time, Bushwick was on the way of being gentrified in the same way as Williamsburg had already been through the late 2000s, early 2010s. So it is one of those cities that I wish I visited more because I do have friends out there and it is a great city. And also just realized, okay, so I didn't mean to say boroughs. I don't know why I said boroughs, but neighborhood. So you said South Brooklyn. What neighborhoods have you largely spent your time in? You mentioned Bushwick.
Yeah, so I originally lived in Bushwick for like a little while, but yeah, I'm in, South Brooklyn, so pretty much just like South Slope, so like
oh yeah,
Gowanus South Slope area is kind of where my like hangs are for the most part.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I like, spend most of my time honestly. But yeah, I mean, definitely I like to be by the water, I guess in general, and I like areas that have like at least a couple trees, which I can't really always say about, Bushwick.
Yeah.
But Bushwick's cool. I mean, I like to opt into Bushwick though, I guess. Like
yeah, that's fair.
I like the choice to go there. But,
yeah.
The nice thing about like New York, I think, is like even though no matter how long you've like been in an area, there's always like somewhere you've like never been before. Like you can always just like end up in a place you like don't recognize. So it's kind of nice.
No, absolutely. And I mean, in the fact that there is such a variety of other spaces, not just in Brooklyn, but like all over New York City. Like, I spent some time in Queens. I really liked Queens.
Yeah.
Although, when I was in Queens, this was like years before everybody kind of scattered towards Queens because everybody got kind of effectively kicked out of Brooklyn to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about process, but real quick, before we pivot into that, I want to circle back to teaching. I have some pedagogical questions, really just one, actually. So you mentioned that you're not just teaching MFA. Do you prefer teaching undergrad versus MFA or vice versa?
I don't think there's I definitely like the MFA. I like them all, like everyone's different. I also even teach just like a continuing ed effective course as well. And so at least for me, I don't know if there's like such thing as like a perfect class, like I just sort of try to like meet everybody where they're at.
Yeah.
And they all have their like, positives and negatives as well. But at least for me, I like don't necessarily, I try to always just treat it kind of the same. Like I even, every so often I'll teach like third graders, and it's like kind of to a certain extent, like you're just sort of like teaching versions of the same stuff to everybody. Like it's not, and like, it's all kind of just the sharing of knowledge, I guess, and like meeting people where they're at and what their like capacity is. So I guess for me, like, I don't really try to ever necessarily like view people differently, but rather as like, like its own sort of thing in its own space. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So you're just in it for the love of the game, just across the board.
I mean, kind of. It's like I really like teaching, and I do find it to be like pretty beneficial to me creatively as well. Just like, I've been screen printing for a long time, and then I teach the same 4-week screen printing class, every month and I've been doing that for like 3 years now. But I would say like at least like every time, like somebody's process of like learning is like so different from me, but like interesting that I like kind of pick up new skills, even though I've like, done the same shtick over and over and over again, Yeah. I think I think teaching truly is like pretty cool for like keeping yourself like fresh. I don't know. Yeah. Or like when I taught kids too, it's like, I don't know, they told me about like music that I would never have like listened to. And I don't know. It does kind of keep you like on your toes a little bit as well.
Okay. What kind of new music is being introduced to you, and at like what age? Like, are we talking like, like third graders?
No, these are like 22-year-olds that are super into Glorilla. And then I was like, what is this? And now I'm like, now I'm in it. Like, yeah, though I'm sure also like third graders have great music, I'm sure if I listened, or let them control the Bluetooth, I would also, I would finally understand what Skibbity Toilet's about, You just gotta listen.
Like a really sweet remix of Old MacDonald.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You never know.
Truly.
Yeah, I don't know how familiar you are with pro wrestlers, but there was this funny video that I saw of a wrestler named Randy Orton, and it was him being interviewed while they were working out with another wrestler. The other wrestler asked him what kind of music he listens to when he works out, and he mentioned Glorilla. What's the other rapper that's like also similarly popular right now? Who's a woman? Oh shit.
Yeah, I'm coming up blank with that one.
But yeah, he just has a playlist of like all women rappers, like modern women rappers. And he's just like, I don't know.
The great unifier.
In the zone.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That's fair.
You heard it, folks. Randy Orton is valid.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about process. I know that you work in a variety of mediums. Like you do work digitally. And then I've also seen some stuff that is done the old-fashioned way, analog tools, etc. And you clearly are very, very familiar with printmaking. So how have all of these like coalesced into your current practice? Like, do you prefer one mode over the other? When do you decide to pull out the digital tablet versus working on paper, etc.?
Yeah, so I have almost like kind of a laughably baroque system of creating art. I own my own like Riso printer, which is a big help, but a lot of times how I make art is that I will I'll do like a like pencil and paper like thumbnail thing, and then do like the sketch digitally, just honestly just so you can get like really precise lines with that, and then I'll like print that out, and then I'll like ink over it on like a light box, and then I'll scan it back in, and I'll do like tones and stuff and like big black areas, and then I'll print that out on my Riso, and then sometimes I'll like scan it back in and like edit it afterwards too. So it's just like the most unnecessarily complex like digital to analog system you could like imagine. But that's how I tend to make a lot of my work. Sometimes I'll like skip a step if I do like a full digital like drawing or something. But for the most part, yeah, I do a lot of like back and forth. And it's just like what works for me and what gets like a quality of art that I'm like happy with. So yeah, it's maybe not, there's probably some steps I could for sure cut out of there to make it a little bit less like time intensive and, you know, easier on paper. But for me, this is what works, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, I appreciate the reliance of analog tools and integrating it in this sort of digital space while still having the majority of your workflow still tied to analog. And, you know, like, obviously there's like quite a bit of advancements being made in digital art. You know, like nowadays you can just buy an action that will set up a file to look exactly like a risograph print, and it'll just do it with the click of a button. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But also, like, you know, if I were to take that image done that way and then like put it up against side by side with an image that was done using more traditional means, you could still tell there's like certain things about the hand that you can't really replicate no matter how advanced the technology is. And so I appreciate the fact that you are doing this really brutal approach and time intensive process. But I think it pays off in the end, right? Like the end result, like you said, it's something that you're very happy with, and it reflects what your end goal is as an artist.
Yeah, and I really agree with you. You can always tell, and also with like printmaking, you can definitely, you know, get whatever you need to like make it look, and it's also more accessible to do that on like digitally. And I'm not at all like poo-pooing people who do like you know, put over like a layer or something. But there's like a way where if you actually like know the machine really well, you can like finagle it so that it's like more detailed or less detailed, and you can kind of like mess with like its version of like bit mapping to, you know, like if you understand the machine, you can also like create very specific like looks with the Riso rather than just doing everything through the like standard process. But yeah, and also I just definitely think that ink, like, you know, looks better when it's done by hand. Like I personally feel that way. I just also really enjoy inking, and if I like removed that from the process of art making, I would like not enjoy it as much. And you know, that, yeah, it's important to me to like have a good time. Like I'm always like so excited for the inking stage of drawing, just because it's like brain off, and then you're just like hanging out with, you know, like ink. I don't know, it's good. I'm into it.
No, yeah. I mean, there is something to be said about the feeling of pulling the brush across paper with ink versus doing that with a digital pen across a tablet. It's just not the same. It just does not. It doesn't hit the way it does on paper. And I say that as someone who's like mostly, if not entirely, transitioned into digital, but that's mostly out of convenience. Like,
weirdly,
if I had it my way, you know.
I weirdly started when I got my like first like, you know, little like Intuos tablet when I was like a freshman in high school, and did pretty much exclusively digital art until like a little bit like post college even. And then I just was like, as in my old age, I've transitioned back to analog for, I guess, the opposite of convenience. And it like, yeah, but I definitely get where you're coming from though. Like it's significantly easier on you to like do like digital stuff or digital only stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like if my work setup was the way I'd like it to be, and I had everything set up so that I could work on paper the way I would prefer, and let's say I don't know, had an assistant that could do all the scanning for me, because that step is just like mind-numbingly horrible for me.
Oh yeah.
I would definitely go that route more often. But yeah, it's I do miss paper. I really do. So I'm jealous. I'm very jealous. It's interesting that you mentioned, that a lot of people, it's the other way, right? Like a lot of people start out analog and then they eventually make their way towards digital for one reason or another, whereas you kind of flipped it in the opposite direction. Do you think that that's like the reason for that is like there's like a generational distance, or is it sort of how you were formally trained, or is it both?
There wasn't very much like art education in my high school. Like there was, but there like wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I did this thing, basically where you just like called it like an independent study, basically. And I just was very interested in learning digital art when I was like, in high school. So like for me, it was like always this really exciting thing, and I would like, I'd see like art on the internet as like a kid and be like, oh, I really want to do that, I want to like do it like how they do it, and like I was very like inspired by like like random like DeviantArts and stuff.
Sure.
And like I got very I was just like aspiring towards that, and I think just like as I like got older, I just sort of like the thing that was like inspiring to me was like as all college kids have really like a Mobius phase. That's like I was just like, man, how do I like do that? So I guess for me, it was just like whatever was like inspiring me at the time sort of inspires my like what I the form I'm taking with art.
Like currently where you're at, the types of like work and the types of artists that are currently inspiring you, would you say they predominantly work in an analog method?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends. I mean, now these days I'm sort of like time-wise, I find it like harder and harder to like be, also the way like the internet is these days, it's like hard to see stuff that you haven't already seen and like find. I don't know, sort of struggling to find like newly inspiring art just because it's like it exists and it's around. It's just like impossible to find,
Yeah.
Because I guess they don't want to pay Meta some amount of money per,
right.
month. But so like, yeah, I have like a bunch of like, standard classics that I always like go back to. I've always been like, ever since I was like a kid, and to this day, like this dude Vanya Zarabalov, who does I'm probably also butchering their name for sure, but like
you get a pass like, for that really one.
Yeah. Yeah, at least I'm not doing like a Boris and Natasha accent, but but yeah, like he does this like beautifully intricate like the ink drawings, or at least what I ink and like just you can just tell he has like a great like drawing hand, and I think the older I get, the more I'm like, it's less even about the tool that you use and more just like how good your drawing hand is that is like inspiring to me these days. And like getting more to it, it's like doesn't matter how you get there, it just matters that that you're there at the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You could have the best tools at your disposal, but like if you don't have the sauce, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've already touched a little bit about how printmaking is very much tied into your process of making work. We already mentioned risograph. You had talked about teaching screen printing, and there is like obviously a little bit of an overlap between screen printing and risograph in terms of how you approach them, like the idea of figuring out how layered flats interact with one another. And also like time intensive wise, like risograph obviously is much faster than screen printing stuff. So is screen printing something that you also looked to integrate into your workflow, or is that just sort of like, well, I could just do that in Rizzo?
So for me, like I'm like looking at my Rizzo right now. It lives in my bedroom right now. Whereas like my like if I were to do a screen print, I would have to, get on my
Yeah.
bike. It's like it's like a 6-minute bike ride down the street, but and then you're like covered in ink, and it's definitely, Rezo is definitely a more like seamless and like easy process. You do set everything up basically the exact same way as you would like a screen print, like just file wise.
Yeah.
For me, like Rezo is something that I don't know, just kind of like vibe with. I took like a class, and then during the pandemic, I just saw on like Facebook Marketplace that like it's like a guy died and his wife was selling Rezos for like $100 or something.
Holy shit.
And then I road tripped to go pick it up in like
Hell
Pittsburgh.
yeah.
So I just got really lucky with the Rezo. I do recognize that that's like one of those things where you just, it was like luck and then, some tenacity. We ended up like breaking it on the way back from Pittsburgh, and then, which worked out amazingly for me, actually. I like made friends with the Rezo tech who fixed it, and then he also put this like interface in it, so like a lot of Rezos you just have to scan everything on the top because it doesn't have like an interface in the back, and this dude just like put it in for free, so I have like also like an extra useful like printer right now. Wow. So it worked out. So destruction, breeds new life sometimes. But and as I got really lucky with it, and it's like fixed and nice, and it like does pay for itself for sure. But like like that's significantly, it's just easier for me to like drawing something, and then I can like I can get like a Rezo done, or like even like a whole run of Rezo prints too, like done in, if I start drawing at like 10 a.m. by like 10 p.m. I'll have like a whole new run of prints, whereas like screen printing, it's like, it's a lot more like time intensive, and you gotta wait for the ink to really dry and stuff. So it is like definitely, I like both processes, and I think they're both like really cool. I always say to like my students with like any type of printmaking is like, you can sort of like opt into how creative you want to be at the you can just like, sometimes you can just like listen to a podcast, and like with screen printing especially, you're just like kind of like pushing ink around and like creating stuff, and you're just like brain is like off, and it's very like refreshing to have like a physical activity you can do that like creates art at the end. Yeah. Which I do think is like, it's a saving grace for me. Me and my like ADHD does like kind of really help. But yeah, I mean like with printmaking, I find it to be like a very like nice like brain off activity a lot of the time, and then you're just like collating pages, and like it's the same thing with like stapling and folding like zines and stuff. You're just like, if you hit it right, you can just like sort of like black out to like an episode of The Sopranos and like wake up like an hour later with a bunch of zines in front of you.
For sure. You mentioned Sopranos. I don't know if you know this. Sopranos comes up a lot.
Oh, really?
On the podcast.
I did not. It's just, it came naturally. I
mean, I welcome it. I absolutely welcome it. I'm a huge Sopranos mark. I fucking love Sopranos. Heather Lose is also based out of New York. Do you know her?
I don't.
She's a comic artist. I feel like you would really dig her work. She's also a huge Sopranos fan, and has also gotten recognized by the one and only Christopher Moltisanti.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Because she did a very funny Sopranos fan comic where Christopher falls in love with her.
Okay,
it's very very funny.
I would read that in a heartbeat.
It is very good. There's a lot of small press people I've noticed that are like really into Sopranos. It's probably like a generational thing too. Like obviously pre and post COVID, like more and more people our age started getting back into it. Even people who just didn't actively watch it when it was on air. But now that you can just stream it anytime you want, there's like this whole new group of people who are getting to experience the beauty that is The Sopranos.
Yeah. I watched it on DVD with my grandma when I was like hanging out with her a couple years ago.
That's sick.
Yeah. It was a vibe.
what were
very
her thoughts?
differing feelings. She had some notes about the profanity and the violence, but
sure,
she watched every episode with me. So
yeah, that's okay. Yeah, there's only one episode that I usually skip just because it's like I've already seen it. Like I mean I've watched the entire run like at least 30 times at this point, but
Nice.
every time this is one episode, it's just like, I'm going to skip this. Employee of the month. It's the,
which one's that?
It's the episode where Dr. Melfi gets brutally assaulted.
Oh, yeah.
In a stairwell.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into details because I don't think I need to.
Yeah.
You kind of know what I'm talking about. If you watch the show, you know what I'm talking about. And I always skip that episode.
Yeah. That's very fair. Yeah.
Not because I'm like, oh, this like offends me to like a heightened degree or anything. It's more just like, I just don't want to see Melfi.
Yeah.
Got like that, but
yeah, that's real. Yeah. That's
So to tie it all in, how does Sopranos fit into your art practice?
I haven't. So yeah, naturally. Yeah. I haven't seen it since probably like must have been like 2017 was the last time I watched an episode, but it does stare me in the face every time I touch HBO Max. So I think it's like I think it's due. I think it's due for a rewatch.
I would have to agree. Anybody listening to this, if you have not watched it, please watch it from beginning to end. If you have watched it and you're listening to this, please go rewatch it.
Yeah, one of the greatest endings of any TV show I've ever seen.
Truly. It's like, honestly, one of the, if not the greatest American television show of all time.
Yeah.
I don't see any other show being able to top what they established.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah.
I'm glad that this just devolved into Sopranos talk.
It just sometimes it has to.
Sometimes it has to, yeah.
Yeah, I should honestly rewatch that. I've been, a lot of times when I'm drawing, I just end up watching just like the worst Netflix true crime documentary imaginable. That's like, and it's like not good. And like, I could have been watching The Sopranos this whole time. And yet I'm rehashing the John Bonet thing.
Well, the next magnum opus that you work on, I think you know how you're going to do it.
Oh yeah. That's, I gotta get on your level.
I can edit this out. But I don't know how old you are.
Oh, I'm 32.
Okay. Damn, all that talk about being old and you're 32. Shut the fuck up.
All right, sorry.
God damn. Okay.
I'm in the fair middle ground,
No, you are not. You are the same age as fucking like Twitch streamers. I don't want to hear it.
Okay. How old are you?
I'm 38 now.
Yeah, it's all in the same ballpark. It's it's horseshoes and hand grenades.
There is you'll find out. There's a stark difference between 32 and 38.
All right. I'm looking forward to making it to 38. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So what do you have lined up in the near future? Are you doing any more appearances? Any particular projects that you have lined up or are actively working on? Like what's cooking in the kitchen right now? Yeah.
So I'm actually I had this very unfortunate string of issues in the last 3 years, which is I've had 2 different studios flood on me. Oh, so man. I am in the process of almost finalizing my flood-proof studio space, but I'll be back and running. And as part of that, I have my own print shop I'm getting back off the ground. So I'm going to do merch at this point. And then I'm also, in terms of comics, I'm finally also getting back to pitching new comics and getting another agent, and so it's all just a bunch of chaos, but very creative chaos. And hopefully pretty soon I'll be able to I'll pitch coming back so I can talk about whatever new comic I have going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you name the time and day, and you're more than welcome to come back on and pitch your wares to the audience, because I'm a big fan of your work. So anything new in the pipeline, I'm going to be interested in.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Is there anything else that you wanted to cover? I don't know.
No, I think yeah. Okay. No, we made it we got from Glorilla to The Sopranos. I think we did it all.
All the important topics on a Small Press podcast. Glorilla,
all
Sopranos.
All of them. Yeah.
That's what the people come to the show for. Is
we got to give them what they want.
Hard-hitting journalism in Small Press. all the hits. Okay, so where can people find you online if they want to check out your work, follow you, actively gang stalk you?
Sure. I am my website is like giannameola.com. So and then I'm at Gianna Meola on like Instagram, and then I'm like bluesky.giannameola or however they do it there. But pretty much if you type my name in, I come up. There's only one other Gianna Meola on the internet, and she's a big Justin Bieber fan, so I'm the other one. If you Google me.
You could lean into that because you got to think,
That's
right?
true.
Like Google is going to be feeding them both of those as results. So if you want to maximize your presence online, you start making Justin Bieber comics, and you're going to capture all of those people.
Would I be required to listen to Justin Bieber's music though to do that? Because
that would make it even better. Yeah, just completely ignorant of his music, but you're just making comics with Justin Bieber in them.
But you know what? Honestly, just throw him in as like a character in the background at all times.
Yeah. Don't even have to look like him. He's just called Justin Bieber.
Yeah. You know? Wow. All right. I got to give you royalties now.
We'll talk about it. My attorney will be able to lay out the final.
Yeah, your
details.
people can touch base with my people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we'll exchange some info with your new future agent.
Perfect.
Get all that worked out. All right. Well, Gianna, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great to finally have you on. And
it's really nice talking to you.
Yeah, good talking to you, and looking forward to the new work, and looking forward to hearing your feedback about a rewatch of Sopranos. All the important stuff.
Yeah, sounds good.
And like I said, let us know if you got something in the works or down the pipeline that's getting ready for release. You got any press announcements, all that shit? Let me know. We'll have you back on.
All right, lovely. It was really great talking to you.
All right, well, that'll do it for this episode, folks. Thanks so much for listening. We want to thank Gianna again for her time. And as always, stay gutter. All right, bye.